started. All right, folks. Well, welcome to the February Employee Forum Full Body Meeting. Thanks for being with us this morning. We've got a great agenda today. We've got some special guests and some new folks joining us. So we're going to kick things off. I want to welcome our Interim Chancellor, Lee Roberts, who is with us this morning to introduce himself to the group. We are so excited to have you, Lee, and looking forward to working with you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of start us off this morning.
Well, thank you, Katie. I really appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I just want to thank all of you in the Employee Forum for your critical role in welcoming voices around the representing and the concerns of our staff and representing voices from around campus. You know, I get paid to do this. You all don't get paid to volunteer your time for the Employee Forum. You do it because you care about the institution and what happens here. And so thank you for that commitment. You know, I've been in this role for almost a month now, and I've loved getting to know the institution better. I've been trying to get around campus as much as possible. I've loved talking to students. It's been fun to start my tenure as they start a new semester. Till last night, the basketball games were a lot of fun. I was undefeated in the Smith Center until last night. I was at the School of Dentistry on Friday when they were having clinics for kids from around the area. A lot of the students dressed up as the Tooth Fairy. I met with the Carolina Black Caucus leadership last week and heard about the challenges and opportunities they face. And clearly a highlight was the game on Saturday. That was an awful lot of fun now that I've seen the light and come over to the right shade of blue. So none of the work that I've seen around this campus obviously would be possible without all of the terrific work that all of you do every day to build our university. And my role is to champion the work that you do every day around the campus and in Raleigh and around our state. So I'm looking forward to meeting more of you and hearing more about your work. And as I say, I want to make sure that everyone knows about the important work that you do. I know that a lot of you have frustrations with how things work or maybe don't work as well as they could around here. I'd love to try to make progress on some of that. I've spent enough time in and around state government to know that some things are tractable and some things are intractable. But a world-class, a world-class organization shouldn't be impeded by bureaucracy insofar as we can try to make progress in those areas. So I want to work with you to address the areas where we can try to effectuate change. Look forward to getting to know all of you and the campus better in the weeks and months to come. And I welcome your recommendations and feedback. We can't improve without feedback, and improvement depends on everybody being willing to say, hey, you know, things are pretty good, but here's something that could be working better. A couple of people have said to me that Carolina runs on love. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. The affection that most people have for this institution is palpable. You can feel it in the air. And I think a lot of things get done because almost despite the infrastructure, despite the bureaucracy, because you've got so many committed people who just know how to get things done and care about getting it done the right way, and that includes a lot of people on this call. So again, I really welcome the feedback. I'm eager for your perspectives. My door is open, and I'm delighted to be here with you. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you all may have. Katie, thank you very much again for having me.
Thanks, Lee, so much. We're going to open up the floor to questions for our new interim chancellor. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we'll take some questions. Arlene.
This is a very soft question. Have you drunk from the old well yet?
I have, yes. You know, I don't have any excuse for not doing so because I can see it out my office window here. It's about 30 yards from where I am right now. So I'm looking forward to the good luck that will bring.
Other questions? We'll probably try and keep it light and easy on your first call with us. Anybody else?
I'll ask another one.
Okay.
What do you think of campus from what you've seen so far, since this is probably the most time you spent on campus?
Yeah, it's a great question. I knew the campus, I thought decently well before, but obviously have gotten to know it much better. And I keep almost every day I visit another extraordinary place on campus. It's really a remarkable physical infrastructure that we have. I know that there are a lot of repair and renovation needs. Believe me, I'm all too aware, but I think sometimes maybe we lose sight of all the just remarkable spaces that we have from Graham Memorial, that beautiful reading room there, Hyde Hall, the incredible space that they have there. I was in Wilson Library yesterday. I had a quick break and I hadn't been upstairs there yet, and I walked around the reading room there and the Black History exhibit that they have at the top of the stairs. Just an extraordinary space. And the new Roper Hall building over at the medical center, the dentistry school, I couldn't get over how impressive that was. So we really are fortunate to have all kinds of remarkable facilities around this campus. And I'm fortunate in my job. I know a lot of folks probably go to the same few places every day, but one of the fun things about my role is I get to go all over campus and see all these interesting places. So that's been a lot of fun.
Well, you're talking to the group of people that can definitely show you around campus and know the ins and outs of things. Laura, you have a question.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. And maybe you've answered this question already with some of your comments that you just shared with us, but what's your top priority for the semester ahead?
So one comment I made just about trying to see if there are things that we can't make work a little bit better is certainly one of them. And I see that that Rick is on the call here. We've already met from the operational excellence group. We've already met to talk about the hiring process, and that's an area that I keep hearing about not only how difficult it is to hire, but the lack of transparency in the hiring process. And that's an area where there are a lot of state laws and state procedures. So changing it isn't entirely within our control, but with Rick's help and his team's help, I think we can make progress on that. I've been working with the provost, who's also on thinking about ways that we can update the strategic plan. So we're in year 4 of a 5-year strategic plan. It served us well, but there are some areas where it needs updating. A great example is AI. Nobody was thinking about AI 4 years ago. We're a leading global R1 research university. We have to have a leading edge strategy for AI. It's arguably the most important development of our careers. And so what is our approach in that area? That's not something that I'm going to come up with on my own, or that the provost is going to come up with on his own, although he probably could, given his qualifications and his background. But we're going to put together a working group of both internal and external folks, including the dean of the School of Data Science, to try to make sure that we've got a really strong strategy in that area. We need to think about enrollment. We need to think about our profile as it relates to engineering. We need to update our campus master plan. So those are all going to be part of the refresh of the strategic plan, and I'll have more to say about that as we get further along. Great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Jacob.
Morning. Thank you for making time. I'm sure there are a lot of competing interests for your attention. I understand, and first off, I appreciate some of your comments about working with and within bureaucracy. There's university bureaucracy, and then there's external bureaucracy. And there's also several decisions with the strategic goals that are going to be coming up. I suppose my question is less priorities, because those are unfortunately kind of tied to what's going on and situations arise and priorities shift. So I'm actually a little bit more curious as to what you kind of consider your lodestar when making those decisions, because so much of it is you're going to be counterbalancing different perspectives, different desires, efficiencies versus cost savings versus employee retention. Like it's never a straight up easy answer. You're always going to be having to make a decision that leaves some people mildly upset, because that's the nature of compromise. So I'm just kind of curious as to what your rule of thumb, your guiding principle in that regard would be.
Yeah, what a great question. I'd answer it two ways. There's a quote from Michael Hooker, who was chancellor about 30 years ago, to the effect of, the reason we have a state university is to serve the people of the state, and the problems of the state are the problems of the university. So that's one answer, is does it serve the state? We have, I believe, the most interesting, one of the fastest growing, dynamic, rapidly changing states in the country. And the university needs to both lead that growth in many ways and keep pace with it in others. And so we can never lose sight of our role as a university in service to the state. The other way I'd answer it, though, is I don't see any reason, and I know the Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors agrees with this, why we can't be head and shoulders the #1 public university in the United States. So right now we're clearly, no matter who you ask or what rankings you look at, in a group of 5 or 6 top public universities. But I think we should set as an ambition and be fairly crisp about what that would look like, of being the best public university in the United States, and make decisions based on that objective. It won't happen overnight, of course, and our peer institutions are by no means standing still, but I think that's a worthy objective for this institution, given our heritage and given our resources.
Great. One last question from Ellie, and then we'll get to some updates from Provost Clemens during our traditional Provost roundtable. Ellie.
So not really a question so much as you talk about updating the strategic plan, I just wanted to reiterate a comment that was actually made by a former one of our delegates to former Provost Bluen, that during the formation of these strategic plans, the Employee Forum has committees that do really far-reaching work on campus. And I guess just to utilize those groups of folks who are in the trenches all the time and sort of aware of what's going on at the staff level, but at the student and faculty level as well. We are required to do committee work, and many of us take it very seriously. So we're here and we can help. And I know there are so many different groups on campus, including STAC, which is the staff advisory committee that Chancellor Guskowitz put together. But just to say, we're here and we're ready to work with you on forming those priorities.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. So the team here in South Building does a terrific job, but if you think about the enormous, complex, decentralized institution that is Carolina, most people are in particular silos. And then we have this very thin layer of senior administrators here in South Building. And the only way that the team here is going to be able to be responsive to the needs and priorities of the university as a whole is with that kind of feedback. So not only do we welcome it, we really depend on it. So thank you very much indeed. I look forward to working with you and with everyone on this call. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Leah. And I'll reiterate kind of what Ellie said and kind of raise it to the next level. Just let us know how we can best help you. The Employee Forum is kind of one of those far-reaching institutions that covers a lot of those different silos. So we kind of have some of the perspective that you're looking for. So let us know how we can help you as you kind of transition to this role. And we're here as a resource. So looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thanks to everyone for having me. Hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
All right, folks, welcome again to Chris Clemens. Thanks for being with us, Provost Clemens. We will hear from you, some updates from the administration, and have some time for questions.
Thank you, Katie. I feel like I haven't been with you in a long time. Maybe it
Yeah,
has.
it's been a while.
Has it been a long time? Because
Yeah.
my sense of time is one of the first victims of being in the office. So many things happen. So I'll give you some updates, but I also want to give you time to ask me about the things you're interested in. And I'll resist telling a story about the early days of neural nets and AI unless somebody asks. So, that I know how AI works in principle doesn't mean I know how to deploy it, but I'll say more here in a minute. SILS, School of Information and Library Science. We have secured a dean, a leader for that school, Jeffrey Bardzell, if you didn't hear that news. He was amazingly fast that agreed to come. He'll be here starting in April 1. He wanted some overlap during the semester, not just in the summer. I think he's going to be a great leader for them. He's got a great vision for the school, and I'm very pleased that with his arrival on April 1, unless some other thing happens, we will not have an open dean search. So that's that he is the 10th dean I have inked since becoming provost 2 years and 7 days ago. So I hope that that will slow down a little bit. We do have, I think, as a consequence of all that hiring, a great team of deans who are working together to advise me on all matters. And I'll say more about what a few of those are. Everyone will want to hear that the School of Civic Life and Leadership search has yielded a nice group of candidates. I am, right now, we are starting the process of trying to secure our lead candidate this week. So that conversation will be ongoing, and hopefully we'll come to a good end of that search. This, of course, is a school within the College of Arts and Sciences, so not going to have its own administrative structures or curriculum. And it'll be interesting to see where we land on that. Students for fair admission. It is now, headed toward most part of a year. I mean, not quite, but we'll come up on a year. Not an easy pivot to comply with a completely different, or I should say, change to the law around how we consider race and admissions. And I think I had said here before, just to sort of summarize, it's not just admissions, right? We have really 4 key areas that a team from the Provost's office, the grad school, and legal has been looking at. We have, of course, admissions, but there are 200 different ways into the university. Early in the fall and mid-fall, we released guidance on how those processes should be configured in order to conform to that new law or the changed law. But we have pipeline programs. We've issued guidance on those. The good news there is we're expanding them. One of the pipeline programs we have are assured admissions from other universities in the system. We have some very fine, historically minority serving institutions. And they do not discriminate based on race. And because they do not, if we have an assured admissions program, that's a pipeline for us. And we have had a couple of these, but the deans are very interested in expanding that. We've given out all the guidance on how to manage these pipeline programs. Recruiting, what are we allowed to do in recruiting? The good news there, much more. Our recruiting efforts are different. And we are able to target by region, by demographic, the people we reach out to try to get interested in coming to our university. We gave that guidance out in the late fall. We have a fourth piece of guidance that's being reviewed today by the Chancellor around financial aid. And in many ways, this is the most complex guidance possible. There are many scholarships, either within the university or without, that do consider protected status as they're awarded. There are federal programs, minority fellowships that students apply for with the federal government. They make the rules. We have to work through all of those, and we have some initial guidance coming out. We don't expect it to answer all of the questions. And so if you are, in an area where you are participating in the disbursement of financial aid funds, you're going to see guidance. Our gift officers are going to have to think about how we write gifts, and in some cases looking at how they're already constructed. Because the basic ruling is, if we are both the disbursing authority and the selecting authority for financial aid, it needs to be race blind, and that hasn't always been true. However, if someone else is doing the selection and we're just the disbursing agent, then we can follow the rules of that agency, as long as we don't have a strong presence in the with our employees in the selection process. So this is going to require some negotiation with some of our partners who provide financial aid, corporate partners, funding partners. It's complex. The guidance will set a framework, and then we will be available to have conversations about that. So if that applies to any of you, look for that guidance this week. The Chancellor mentioned AI. I wanted to update you, just a little history. We did make a nice committee with Mark McNeely and Stan Ahalt, and I think we had representation from this body over last summer. That was to get us to a place of guidance for faculty, staff, others. I think it was here that you pointed out we would like to have staff guidance, and we added to the committee enough presence from staff so that you can go now to the website. The website is moving. We're going to make an AI website, and we'll put a pointer on the Provost site where that guidance lives now to point to a new site, because there's going to be more than guidance. We have a lot of new things are going to happen, and it shouldn't sit on a tab at the Provost office. It's going to have its own place. That's being set up. But let me tell you the three areas that Mike Barker, Stan Ahalt, and others, and the deans have been working on. AI will touch us in about three ways initially. Well, first of all, you already have access to it through Bing, right? We've enabled for everybody but students, I think that's coming soon, the Bing chat features that give you sort of free access to the equivalent of Chat GPT 4.5 or whatever the current version in Bing is. So if you want to play with AI and not pay $30 a month to someone, use that Bing feature. That's part of your UNC features that you have now. But what would be next would be, we have a contract with Microsoft 360, and they have a new tool called Copilot, which you can probably see an icon for. That will be connected to a much more secure than you would be able to purchase ChatGPT version of AI tools. We'd like to run a pilot. Mike has recommended we think about a pilot with a certain number of sites. It's very expensive for everyone to have Microsoft 360 Copilot. The price we were given on that is far out of reach for us. The question is, who would use it productively among the faculty, staff, and an initial group of students? And how would we pilot it to see what we have to do to enable it and support it? So Mike is coming with a proposal to the deans to do an initial pilot study where some number of faculty, staff, and students would get access for 4 months. You would have to sign up to give feedback and say how you're using it and so on. That's in its initial stages. The deans are just looking at how it would look. But the deans of the schools will be getting an allocation if we go down this path and having to decide how to disperse these initial seats. The seats will be good for a whole year. The initial 4 months would be a feedback period, 4 to 6 months. So think about that. If you are at the cutting edge of using ChatGPT already in your work, you'll want to somehow communicate to your dean that you'd like to be in this pilot. There'll be plenty of chance for us to to do that, but we do need to move quickly. And so we're talking about within the next month having that proposal in front of folks. The second thing is for real AI applications in research or in an operational manner, like OE with Rick Warnowski would do. You have to make a sandbox to get the full set of capabilities that are not available in Microsoft 360. We've already set up one sandbox in the School of Data Science, and Mike and IT are learning how to manage those sites where we do something. These would be more like use cases where we'd like to do something to streamline a process in HR or one of your areas. And when we start to do that, we'll be soliciting use cases and trying to go down that path. That's sort of after this co-pilot pilot. We're trying not to call it the co-pilot pilot, but that's what I'm calling it now. The third thing, of course, is cloud services generally, Microsoft Azure or some equivalent. How much are we trying to do with our data storage and computing in the cloud versus locally? That's research computing and everything else. We're also studying that. So those are sort of the three arenas of AI in which the campus served by, of course, Mike Barker in IT, Stan Ahalt in SDSS, and my team of deans and other experts. Looking at what's the right approach to this. I'm happy with where we are. Everybody says we have to go fast. Well, we have to go fast in a way that respects what the needs are, not just to create capabilities that we don't know how to use or aren't using. And so I think we've got a measured approach that's going to get us to a good position and help leverage us into continuing leadership in this area. So I'm happy to take questions about that. I do want to respect that we don't have a lot of time and I've gone on too long. So let me take questions because you may have other issues you want me to address. Thank you all again for being here, for all you do in this forum and in your work. I always feel like I have the largest and best team I've ever known to work with. So
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Folks with questions for Provost Clemens. I guess I'll start. I was kind of curious. I know the financial implications of some of those AI technologies that we're looking at acquiring are probably pretty vast, and I think it's changing quite frequently. Yeah, my question, I guess, is that being taken on centrally, like the cost of that? I know you mentioned that there will be some allocation to departments for things down the line, but I just was curious, kind of the delineation of some of those services that are available to across the campus.
thank you, Katie. That is a great question. Initially, we're going to try to lift this centrally. So it isn't a participate only if you have resources. We'd like everybody to participate. There will come a point where judicious decisions will have to be made. The best way to do that is to let people see the cost a little bit so that they do it efficiently. What that mix will look like, I don't know. And I would like to say more too about the pricing, but I don't know what's under NDA and what's not. And so I try not to have discussions about that in detail. We do have an existing relationship through Microsoft 360. So of course we're talking to them. I'm aware there are other choices and Mike is aware too. So we try not to close off options, but exploit or at least explore expanding the partnerships we have.
That's great and helpful. Thank you. And thanks again for listening and hearing us when we brought forward the suggestion around staff guidance. I think it's been great to loop staff into that process and look forward to continuing to help your team through that as we move forward.
Yeah, I think in a way, operationally, the staff may lead us on this in ways because they know where their work might use a tool like this. And if we can get it in the hands of some staff who are already moving in those directions. And I know we've had some staff here training on various aspects of it, and I've tried to do some work myself. I am a long way from being a prompt engineer. That's the new jobs that our kids are going to be interested in. Great.
And thanks to Rick and his team for helping with that staff guidance effort. We definitely voluntold the operational excellence team into that project. So we appreciate their help with that too.
Yeah, I'll add my thanks to Rick. OE will be at the center of operational use cases that we may deploy in the initial sandboxes. So he'll take that on, with IT support Because I think, there's some wins that we can imagine. Turning them from imagination to reality, that's hard work by Rick and his team.
Great. Arlene, you have a question?
It helps to unmute. Considering it's early days yet, have there been any wins yet, or is it just too soon? We're just still looking at the impact.
There haven't been any operational wins because we're early in the process of thinking what those use cases would be. I know Stan has, in the Stan Ahalt, the dean of SDSS, has got some tools set up that they're running forward with. I haven't actually asked him the question if anything big has happened there. So I'll ask him, and I'll come next time and let you know the next time I'm here whether there have been any big wins. I see little wins every day. I see presentations where people are using a Dolly image that makes a point that you couldn't have made with any scan of the internet or drawing of your own. And so I see people starting to use it in ways that are they're having impact. So I know it's out there.
Yeah. I think the more we hear about it, I think the more people's imaginations are going to be piqued and they're going to start looking into it and utilizing it. So it's great to hear those updates, Chris. Anybody else with any questions for Provost Clemens? Jacob?
Love it when I go to unmute it and instead brings up every other icon I could possibly click. My question specifically with AI is I know that we're kind of in a holding pattern about using particular AI technologies in regard to like security cameras and other things like that. I'm just curious if there's going to be like, I'm sure there's already people in a working group on that. I'm just curious if those findings, if there's a timeline for those and what kind of decisions we're leaning towards and kind of where we're at in that process.
So I'm not in any discussion outside of the three buckets I mentioned, which are the ways in which we're going to deploy AI resources that staff could have access to, or faculty or students or research groups. On the operational side, if we're looking at AI technologies there, I'm not in the loop on that. So Jacob, if you'll send me any direct things you know about or concerns, I'll be happy to answer by email. But as far as I know, we're not contemplating our own use of AI. Now, buying AI-enabled tools or technologies. The only thing I know about is, there is this effort to get license plate readers, which I assume may have AI, so we know who's on campus as a follow-on to some of our issues last year. But
yeah, just to give you a little more context, it has more to do with the fact that as a lot of folks, I'm in the middle of upgrading security systems here at the union. Almost all new security cameras that you purchase have AI capabilities.
Right.
However, from guidance from the universities, we're not allowed to utilize any of that. So I'm just curious. I was just curious as to where that was moving forward, because I know that there is an appetite for being able to utilize some, even if it was simply less like just like for like uses, like
Got it. No,
counting to be like, hey, what's our occupancy rate kind of stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob, for that context. So this is an IT question, right? Every time we make a leap or a change in IT, there are unintended consequences, and you can have, in an attempt to do security, you can have security breach. So they have to look through how is data being shared, all these things. This has felt like an impediment to some of the other issues I've talked about, but in fairness, you want those impediments. You have to be thoughtful about supporting a whole new set of technologies and what they might do to your network security and other things like that. And so I think most of those issues are probably technical rather than administrative issues that Mike and his IT team are going to have to work through. But I'd be happy to reach out to him and find out where we are on that.
Excellent. All right, folks. Well, thank you, Chris, for being with us again. It has been a while. We had a while there that we had Chancellor Guskowitz during his departure a couple times in a row. So it's nice to see you back here.
It is always a pleasure, and I'm happy to come back and talk to you at the next possible moment. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, folks, small update on the agenda. So Dr. Perrin-Jones, who is one of our Board of Trustees members, was going to be here to speak with us and kind of chat and introduce himself and the board. And we would love to have him here. He is a a working surgeon and he's on call today. So hopefully he can pop in at some point during the call, but I think saving lives and working with patients takes priority. So we'll keep an eye out for him. But in the meantime, we will proceed with the other parts of our agenda. So with that, we will turn to finance and operations and updates from Nate Knuffman. Looking forward to that and hearing all about budget things. So fascinating. No sarcasm there at all.
That's right. Well, what's more exciting than talking budget, right? Thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody. I have a short slide deck I'd like to share with everyone just to walk through kind of where we're at on the budget.
Awesome. You're welcome to share your screen.
Okay. Can everybody see this okay?
It's still coming up, but yes, now we can see it.
Good. All right, excellent. So where are we at in the fiscal year 24-25 budget process? Well, we started this back in October, sent out some instructions, got a lot of thoughtful and very informative submissions from campus units. We've been pouring through those and we've been meeting with everyone across campus. We are at that stage where we are trying to put the budget together and make some final decisions and really be in a position where we can make recommendations to the Board of Trustees in the March for the March Board of Trustee meeting at the end of the month in March. So far, we feel like there's strong alignment there and we're in good position to do that. After getting approval at that stage, it would go to the Board of Governors for review in May. Where we're at more specifically. So, all units have submitted materials. When we think about what that looks like in total, about $125 million of requests came in and were received. So that's on the one hand, that's a really big number. It's actually less than what we had historically received. 2 years ago, it was closer to $170 million. And even that 125, I think, is a bit overstated because there's probably $25+ million of capital in there. So on the operating side, it's actually less than 100, and it's really concentrated in three big units. So I think in general, there was better alignment with just the revenue we have to work with, the resources and expectations in terms of what's being requested. So I think that's a good outcome. And I will acknowledge there's several units that didn't ask for anything in this process, and I think are really maximizing their existing resources. It doesn't mean they're not reallocating within their own units to try to accomplish what they like to do. So I think that's worth noting. Had good budget meetings, like I said, to the extent any of you have helped contribute toward that. I know it's a lot of work and we've been very appreciative. There's a new tool we're using instead of doing the Excel manual back and forth. We actually have a tool we're using centrally. We think it's improved efficiency. The feedback has been really positive to date. So that's been great. What's new this year? We have, I mentioned the tool. I do think it has helped with consistency. We'll have a better document of record. There's some new focus areas. If there's a space implication to your request, we just want to know about it so we can understand that and try to plan better. We've been sensitive contextual metrics. We've been sensitive to just putting out numbers on the budget. If you think about this, we started this all funds budget process a couple of years ago. It's great. It's a great step forward in transparency, but it is really a table of numbers without that context on what we're getting for it, really shifting this conversation on budget to really a little bit more toward what is that return? What are we getting for those dollars? And I think that's an important consideration as we consume that information about what the costs look like across the enterprise. So we've talked about trying to add some context there. The system office stressed finding efficiencies. So we have made that a point in terms of our engagement with all the units, just about what we're doing. I think we do a good job on this. We just don't tell our story quite as well all the time about all the different things we're doing across the campus to actually find some efficiency and really reallocate some resources there. We've done a lot of work on how we allocate tuition and appropriation dollars to different academic units and what drives those decisions and how that works. So we're working through an enrollment allocation that I think rolls forward a lot of the funding model changes the system office made 2 years ago It rolls those forward and also standardizes how we share tuition revenue centrally versus in an academic unit. So we're trying to get a little more standard there as opposed to it being sport. What's guiding how we're going to make investment decisions? Really, we have several investments we made, whether they're new schools we launched or other things we want to solidify those. We always have a mind toward where the state priorities are, what the state is asking for us on the workforce side, on other components, and we want to make sure that we are following through and upholding that. Safety and accessibility continue to be a major theme that we are prioritizing. And then Carolina's excellence is really about investing in ourselves and making sure we have the dollars to remain competitive here with our workforce and staying competitive there. Before I get into the specifics on our what we're working with and kind of where we think we're really landing at this point, it's important to start kind of bigger picture. When we talk about budgeting at UNC-Chapel Hill, we need to keep in mind the state, where we're at in the state. Fiscally, we're in a good position. We're not in a position where there's actually they've built up healthy reserves. They've over collected on the revenues exceeded what they forecasted at the state level for several years in a row. So we're in a good position there. I don't think and I think that's helpful. Always need to keep in mind the state has a very big commitment to affordability, and that really remains paramount. But it also has implications for how we manage at the institution. What levers we have to grow revenue and how we think about it at the institution. When we think across the system, again, we're talking about UNC-Chapel Hill. It's important to keep in mind when we're talking about our budget and we're putting that forward to the Board of Governors, they're also looking at a bunch of other system institution information, and there are big enrollment challenges across the system, and it's a very different kind of conversation, and we need to be sensitive to that when we're really thinking about how we're talking about this. I mentioned the system enrollment funding formula and the changes there, and then the last point's an important one. Our environment generally, and this is across higher ed, I think more holistically, you've got governing bodies demanding more financial and operational transparency on what we're doing. And I think you see it here, I think more specifically here within the UNC system, this big push on all funds budget. I think it's been a really positive thing for the campus, but that's a product of that. This ROI study that you've heard a lot about the return on investment for different academic programs, again, a similar kind of motivation. So with that big backdrop going into the campus here we do have some limited revenue available for investment. We're in a stronger fiscal position than we had been historically, which is great. That's really driven by some enrollment growth we've had at the campus. We have had some limited tuition increases. Again, I talked about we have constraints on some of our major fiscal drivers, but we do have a little bit of flexibility in non-resident tuition and then some of the graduate tuition. And so we've gotten there is some additional dollars coming in there, and our research continues to grow. We are continuing to work through, that's a dynamic estimate on what tuition and those dollars look like and the research dollars. So we continue to monitor that. And we do have some strategic reserves, modest levels that we've accumulated available. So what are we prioritizing? What are big considerations? One big one is just, again, I mentioned solidifying those investments we already started to make. We've got the School for Data Science that we've launched recently, School for Civic Life and Leadership, making sure we have the resources to match the hiring and support and the pace with which they are moving forward. We've talked a lot as a campus about campus safety and accessibility. We want to make sure there's some dollars set aside for the after action report and some recommendations that may materialize from that we can follow through on those. Startup funds. This is about really remaining competitive in our research space. This is probably the #1 requested area of support centrally from all the different academic schools. Probably a majority almost asked for some assistance in this space. New programs. This is really about having a model, having some support that bridges dollars for that initial startup when you're launching an academic program, to make sure that we have some initial dollars before the tuition and appropriation materialize, so that we can do things that are entrepreneurial, that may be in our best, aligned with our mission, but can help kind of bridge those dollars. Graduate students support, that's going to continue to be a priority. We're still working through the mechanics on what that might look like, but we know there's going to be some dollars prioritized for that. Research equipment and support. A lot of times there's need for research equipment and even just support that extends beyond just the capability of one individual school or unit. We want to have some central dollars available to really make those bigger, larger investments that can benefit the institution. The system office and legislative requests, I note that, and it's a consideration because we need to think about these things in tandem, right? We've got our own resources at UNC-Chapel Hill, and we've got our own budget process, which we're describing. We also have an opportunity every year to put forward some requests to the legislature through the system office. These things need to complement each other, and we need to think about those strategically and how they work together. And we've been trying to do that and make sure we're mindful of that. And then that last piece, I mentioned to you the system office priority about efficiency, making sure we are finding those opportunities. So I covered a lot of ground. I'm happy to take any questions on any of that.
Excellent. Questions for Nate? Check my chat really quick. In the meantime, Michael, your hand's up.
You mentioned return on investment analysis. Are there any plans or mechanisms in place to protect university programs from what happened at West Virginia University a few months ago, where programs that were seen as unpopular by whoever controlled the purse strings were deemed insufficient returns on investment as an excuse for getting rid of them?
Great question, and you're right. This conversation nationally is certainly happening. We were paying close attention to what happened at West Virginia. Here more locally, there's a large conversation on UNC Greensboro about academic programs and starting to think about whether or not there's a way to prioritize certain ones and maybe and so the ROI data, it's a tool. It helps to inform. I think it's a starting place. And it's one methodology that starts to identify return for, you can look at through multiple lenses. And the way that study is set up, there's an institutional perspective and then a student perspective. And it's really looking at the dollars a student is really expending versus their return or their salary, over a certain period of time, over their lifetime. And they really try to compare those items to reach some conclusions. I think it's a starting point for analysis. And I think the way I've heard the system office talk about this is really it's a complement to what we were doing on the all funds budget process to some degree, where we have more transparency around how we're spending. And this is starting to get at some of the return piece. I think as a follow-up to that, the ROI study, each campus across the system is having an opportunity to look at some of the poorer performing academic programs and to be able to provide additional information to the system office. And so everyone's in the process of doing that. Our campus included. Our list is much, much shorter than many other system institutions, but we're starting to work through that and work through the system office, what that means.
It's simply my hope that nobody who makes the decisions about these things makes the mistake of forgetting that we are a public service, not a public enterprise, and that it's not necessarily our job to turn a profit.
Appreciate those comments. Thank you, Michael.
Annetta, your hand's up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I did have a question about one of the budget considerations. I think the last item on your list was around efficiencies.
Yes.
And I am wondering if there is some connection to the efforts on campus around operational excellence. Is there some intersection between this budget consideration for making the university, or aspects of university operations more efficient? Is there some intersection with operational excellence? And I raised this question because even with these efforts, when it comes to asking for money, are we telling those stories? Because I know certain units have been on a path of improving operations and getting toward, what we consider to be excellent operations. We've been on this path for a couple of years now. And so I just feel like there needs to be some storytelling about that if we're going to, have the ear of those who are considering return on investment and how much money the university is going to get. We need to be able to tell those stories. I don't know all of the units who are embarking on, efforts around operational excellence, but I think there is a connection. So, if you have anything to add to that, that would be great clarity. But I just wondered, is your consideration around efficiency? Does it include operational excellence?
Yeah, Annetta, thank you very much for those comments. When I think of efficiency, I think an important clarification is just it may not be just saving money, but it may be operating more effectively. And I think that's been really a lot of the push from operational excellence. And I think they've really helped us on a variety of different processes on campus. So I couldn't agree more with the comments you made in terms of being able to lift up some of those stories and some of the things we've done to improve how we operate. In many ways, we may be using the same amount of dollars, but maximizing those and getting more output for that. And that's a form of efficiency. And also just reallocating, it may not be a savings per se, but we may be using those dollars towards and moving them toward our higher priorities. And again, that's a form of I think that's a form of efficiency, or even maximizing how we're allocating resources. I know a big opportunity that we've seen across the campus is really on how we manage space and leasing. We've seen some opportunities to really, and we expect that we can generate some significant savings in the next fiscal year on just being able to reduce that lease footprint. But with those, we may in turn be able to reinvest those in an area where toward our top priorities. And some of those was what we listed, and I kind of went through earlier. But I think that's part of that story. And I would also encourage anyone here, we're always looking for those opportunities to lift up those stories and tell that. I really meant that when I said earlier, I think a lot of this work is being done on campus. I think sometimes we don't take the time to really capture some of that work. And I think it's really helpful to tell. So please share if you have some stories that you think are compelling on that side. We'd like to be able to do that.
Thank you.
There are several comments in the chat, but I encourage folks, if they are putting comments there, if they want to bring them forward to the conversation, to feel free to raise your hand. In the meantime, do we have any other questions for Nate? Otherwise, I'd love to have time for Nate to introduce our other guests here today, who are going to be working with a lot.
Good. I'm glad. If there's no more questions, I would love to be able to. I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Wendy Halsey, who is joining us as our AVC for facilities. As you know, Carly Perrin, big thank you to Carly, has been serving in that capacity on an interim basis for almost the last year. But we are very thrilled to be welcoming Wendy to starting this week with us and joining our finance and operations team. She most recently came from Virginia Tech, and a great addition already. And I'm very confident she's going to be a great fit here at the university. And I know everyone on this call and in the forum will enjoy getting to work with her. Wendy.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. It is day 3, so I'm still meeting folks, but everyone has been so lovely and welcoming, and I'm really excited to be at Chapel Hill. And what a great opportunity on one of my first big meetings is to be a part of Employee Forum, where I know a lot of important work and discussion happens. So I look forward to be a more participating member in these in the future. And again, while I still have a lot to learn, if you have issues, concerns, recommendations, observations about facility stuff that you want to share, I'm happy to take those and work with the team to get you some information. So thanks. I look forward to working with all of you.
Well, just reiterating all the comments in the chat to welcome you, Wendy. We're looking forward to working with you. I know we had the pleasure of meeting during the search process, and I'm originally from the Blacksburg area, so I can with confidence say that Chapel Hill is an improvement just from my perspective. So welcome to Carolina, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Kate.
Yeah. All right, just any final questions for Nate or Wendy before we move to the next portion of our agenda? Okay, all right. So as always, we have our traditional human resources update. Becci, welcome to the call.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you. You've certainly had a full agenda this morning and have heard from the full gamut of leadership. So you certainly have gotten a better show from the others, but I have a little bit of an update. At many of these meetings, I've been talking about the fact that SHRA ranges are under review. I am pleased to report that the SHRA range project went before the State HR Commission a couple of weeks ago, and those ranges were approved unanimously. They now go to the governor. We are waiting on the governor's signature, and then they'll come back to us with guidance, and we will go ahead and implement them definitely before the end of the fiscal year. So we're moving forward. You would be sad if I didn't announce that just because we have new ranges doesn't mean we're automatically going to get new raises. The good news, however, is that the system office, at least as I understand it, in their legislative priorities, and we've certainly added a request in ours, is that we do a labor market adjustment reserve, such that we can, at the very least, bring those folks who no longer meet the minimum ranges up to the minimum. And then certainly if there's more money available, we go further up than that. The good news about these ranges is there is a minimum of a 7.5% adjustment, and the adjustments go as high as 25% depending on the job and the range and the family. So more information on that to come, but certainly in my world, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Definitely we like to see ranges be updated more regularly than we have more recently, but the chance to be able to look at every job family and go out to market for data doesn't happen very often. And so the fact that we've done that, I can't say that the State HR Commission was really impressed with the data that the system office and Buck Consulting put together, and they will actually be adopting some of the ranges for some of their state employees as well. So this is a really good thing. Somebody's asking, will this cause us to hire new folks at a higher pay levels than the current staff? Not necessarily. The goal would be to bring everybody up to into the ranges. If you're bringing in new people and you've got people below that, we'll certainly work with you on the equity pieces. But the hope is that as we get the guidance, we can help units identify where in the ranges they want their targets to be. And then how they build out a plan to do that. Obviously, it's not going to be in year one for most people to get to where they want to be in terms of market penetration, but certainly we're going to do everything we can to try to help units manage and plan for. Truthfully, at Chapel Hill, I know this is a really big concern. The number of people who are below range is actually quite small for us. The impact will be decidedly low because we've had so many people at 100% and 110 and 15% of market. So when we do the adjustments, they'll certainly come lower in the new range, but they are not likely to fall below the numbers based on the early analysis that we've seen from the system office. This is not necessarily true at some of our system campuses. Elizabeth, you comment that that needs to be more than a goal. It needs to be a real part of the process. Equity certainly is a part of the way we manage things. I want to remind everybody that equity doesn't mean equal. We use a deep process to manage equity. It's part of what I do every day in my job, and our team does as well. There are some things that throw off equity efforts, and there's no doubt about that. I don't want to pretend that's not the case. when, particularly for our EHRA colleagues, when they consider a job elsewhere and we do a retention bonus, that can often throw off equity because then one person is doing the job at a different rate. The good news about that is we have a bonus system now that's available to both our SHRA and our EHRA colleagues, and that is intended to help us manage that. So we don't see so many base adjustments, but rather we do bonuses to manage retention so that the units can use the limited number of dollars they have to more equitably provide resources across job families. So again, it's not a foolproof system, but I will assure you that we are looking at that, and we do our annual report every year to look at equity and where we're meeting that and not meeting it across the institution. So, and then the next piece after the SHRA ranges, we're going to see EHRA ranges come through. The work has actually already begun on that. There's a sort of a new structure being put together with families and then the job categories under each of those. We got an early preview of what the structure would look like this past week. They're working on data and crosswalking on that, at least to give us a sense of where people would fit so we can answer questions more reasonably. We should be able to see some of that in March, and the goal is that we will have those to look at the same time before the end of the fiscal year this year. The goal would be that we would implement those new ranges later in the year. And then at that time, we would be able to better manage those SHRA to EHRA conversions that we've talked about previously, because then folks who have the opportunity to convert will better understand what they're converting to, should they decide to do so, and then also what their promotional opportunities are at that point in time. So the sequence here is SHRA, EHRA, SHRA to EHRA conversion is the process. Huge kudos to the system office for their work and sort of keeping this moving. I have never seen a project move this fast, and Buck has done a remarkable job of helping us. Once we look at this first round of data on the EHRA ranges, we'll take a look and see whether they match where we think we want to go, and then we'll there may be some more areas where Buck goes further out to market. The SAO tier ones will come as a result. As you all know, I think I mentioned previously, EHRA and SAO tier twos, or sorry, EHRA IRIT positions and tier two positions are now merging into a new classification called exempt professional service, EPS, which is really under the larger EHRA umbrella, which also includes faculty. That merger will happen in the middle of all of this, but we're still calling it EHRA for now, so nobody has to change their nomenclature just yet. SHRA pay bands we hope to be implemented by the before the end of the fiscal year, so before June. Again, we will put those in the system. That doesn't necessarily mean adjustments will be made then. It will just be that they're in the system, and then we'll plan accordingly. Though that, of course, that timing depends on getting the guidance, being able to update the HRIMs, or I have our HRIM team update the system, and to make sure that we're lining everything up. That's our target. So fingers crossed, and we'll keep you posted on that. And then, sorry, one other thing we've got coming, because the system office is doing their darndest to keep us as busy as possible right now. We also have the next engagement survey coming out in March. As many of you know, we do these every other year. Some years they're the full survey, some years they're the pulse survey. And this year, because I think there was some confusion about which one was best, they decided on something in between. So it's a little bit longer than a pulse, but not as long as the full scale. We will, as in the past, translate that for our colleagues for whom English is not their first language. So there will be opportunities for others or for everyone to take it. And it will be electronic primarily. And that happens mid-March, though, again, we're still working through the final dates with the system office. Those are the big ones. I know there, Elizabeth's got a question, and I'm happy to take that, and then any others might have.
Hey, Becky, this is a really strange question. On the other side of trying to cope with until these changes happen and other things that won't be fixed by these changes. We've got a wonderful HR rep in with our department. I'm just
Great.
wondering how to deal with this challenge. She's great, but how can she and I work to overcome some of the challenges we're having right now through requirements for a hire? If we have work that needs to be done and somebody's work experience qualifies them to do that work, but they can't get hired because they don't yet have a bachelor's degree, what can we do? Because we need to do something. And that's one of the barriers to effectively landing somebody that I would love to hire. She's going to encounter that boundary. We know that it's there for a reason, but what about work experience? What about something like an apprenticeship? Who do we go to with these creative ideas and not get shot down? Because we've got to do something.
Yeah, so the work experience is in the works. There's some work happening with the OSHR and actually as a result of the governor's proclamation, and that is coming to us, that we will be able to do some version of a certain number of years of experience or equal qualifications instead of a degree. We don't yet have that guidance. So unfortunately, I don't have a really good path for which you can move that forward right now, but it is in the process. Apprenticeships, there are a few places where that is happening. The finance and operations team has put together a couple of options. That it is a much more complicated endeavor to put together the program to apprenticeship, though it is an option. But it may be easier to wait is sort of the short answer to that, for the amount of steps you have to go through to get the approval on an apprenticeship. So happy to talk with you more specifically about what you're looking at, but and I need to find out what the timeline on that is, but I do know that in our conversations, they have been talking about the ongoing conversations with the OSHR and the system office about the translation to educational experience and then where that applies. Is it all bands? Is it some positions? Is it, can you still preference a degree? Obviously, this is a challenge that differs for OSHR than it does for the entire campus, but we have plenty of jobs where experience is totally sufficient. And then we have other areas where having a degree, obviously faculty, we're not going to change that requirement, but there are certain areas where we just have to make sure our language it lines up with the job duties. So there's been a lot of work happening. I just don't know what the timeline is on it, and I'll find that out.
Okay. I did have a question. So in the interim between when we see the data around the new pay bands for SHRA, I was hoping, I know you've seen it. Do you have, or you or your team have any concerns? I know we had so many questions and concerns over the past couple of years around the housekeeping pay bands.
Yep.
I was just curious what your thoughts were of kind of these new ranges and what they would mean for that department that had been struggling with kind of compression issues and other retention problems.
Yeah, so I don't actually recall the housekeeping numbers exactly. I mean, obviously, the fact that they went up already, I think those will be a smaller increase than some of the others. Overall, I would say I'm rather satisfied with where these landed. I think some people on campus will be dissatisfied with some of the numbers because they think they should be making more. Unfortunately, the market data didn't bear it out. And we looked at market data. We used regional data. So instead of using just North Carolina, we looked at the region. This is the way the state does theirs. We also looked at national data to see if, well, we knew we would have a harder time getting the state HR commission to approve national data. We wanted to see how far the difference was. Truthfully, in almost all categories, the regional data was as good or better than the national data. So that was actually part of the reason I feel really satisfied with it, is because the goal of the steering committee was to make the numbers as employee friendly as possible, because we're all the people that are trying to hire y'all. So we're saying we want to make sure that we have the best ranges possible. If this is our one shot to get this right, we're going to make them the best we can. So in almost every spot, we went to regional data. There were a couple of job classifications where we used national, and we had a reason for that. And then there are a couple of places where we got pushback. One of the, I'm not talking out of school because I've already had a conversation with the folks in dentistry. We've had a really hard time with dental hygienists and dental lab folks. And that's not a category that's widely used across the state, but the competition on our campus is particularly hard, in part because of local dentist offices, the hours that those folks need to spend both in an office setting and doing training. So the job duties don't line up exactly with the market data, even though the job title is exactly the same. And we went back and forth with them quite a bit. I don't think we got where we wanted to land, but we got much better than where we started with where OSHR came back originally. So we found some sort of middle ground, and the system office was an outstanding advocate on our behalf. They called us back and asked us to provide more data. We did that. We've been going back and forth with them for a long time on this one, but this was one where we pushed really hard because we looked at the data on turnover, hiring. We have all of that. When you all tell us your pain points, we're seeing it all as well. So we took all of that to them. And dentistry is one example, but there were a handful of other areas that we had to push back because the first round wasn't as strong as we might like. Again, lots of places where I think we would like the ranges to be even higher as individuals because we think our work is worth more than that. But we also are constrained by the realities of market data. So, and you know, as somebody said, we're a public service organization, so we can never expect that we're going to be at the front of market data. So, yeah.
It's very helpful. Any other questions for Becci before we move to the next portion of HR updates? And yes, reiterating some of the comments, thank you for your advocacy on behalf of staff. Becci, you and your team are doing great work there, and we appreciate all of your help taking those things to the system level, which is where a lot of our problems lie, is the state bureaucracy. So appreciate you. We do have a special guest during our HR updates this time around. I would like to welcome Walter Miller, who's the Director of Payroll Services. Welcome, Walter. He's going to present to us and talk to us about a new TIM system. Yay, new platforms. Again, no sarcasm, none at all.
Hold on a second. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Are you seeing the PowerPoint that says TIM system update?
Yes, sir, we are.
Excellent. So, there's very few systems on this campus that actually touch basically every employee on this campus. And our timekeeping system happens to be probably the most engaged system across the campus. So when we are undergoing a very significant update, it seemed right to come and share this news with the forum to give a sneak preview. Katie will tell you that I have been messaging her for probably the last 12 months saying, okay, at some point I'm going to need to come and share about what we're doing. We're currently about 19 months in development of this. And I don't quite have the exact date yet, but we are to the point that this update is getting imminent. Getting into the final stage, so glad to be sharing about this upcoming system change. So the product that we've been on, it's called Workforce Central. We've been on it since 2005, on-premise instance, and it's coming to its end of life. So the vendor, UKG Kronos, you'll hear both those names at times. Kronos became UKG. Approached us with a cost neutral option to move to this to their latest and greatest timekeeping systems, cloud-based, and we'll talk about some of the benefits here in a second. I hesitate to say it's no cost because I think Kristen Donovan, whose name you probably heard in the context of Tim and the team that have been working on it, we've spent a lot of time over the last 19 months. So it's, but I think it's going to be well worth it. So benefits to the updated system. One of the, we always had a licensing constraint in the old system, and that the way the licensing's priced is actually going to change. So more managers will have access to see their employees in TIM, especially managers who only have who are in TIM and have EHRA positions only. They will now have that access. So looking forward to extending that access. More modern tile-based format. We'll take a look at it here in a second. New functionality to address employees with multiple positions. And I really should probably say students. I mean, this is the issue of students. They've got positions in disparate departments across campus. And we are probably the largest, we've been a guinea pig for this, for their new development of this, which is one reason the update has taken a little longer, I think, than I originally thought. But the way that especially students function will change, and we think change for the better. There's also a lot of new updates, a lot of new features. This is their system of the future. There's mobile apps, there's enhanced reporting, but you know, we're for this initial release, it's more of kind of a lift and shift. So we'll hope to take advantage of those items in the future. So let's take a look at the system. As I mentioned, new modern tile-based format. This is what you see in Connect Carolina when you log in. And a lot of the activities that you'll do, go to the time card, take a look at the accruals. They are readily available on the homepage. So here's how the time card looks. And I think it's going to be a very familiar look for hourly staff, exempt staff biweekly. The vendor doesn't actually have a monthly view, so this will be the view, except it'll be a full month for our monthly employees. And here's an example with some time entered on the card. The manager, of course, the manager is doing a few more things, and a number of y'all supervise, so I want to give this view. So pay period close is immediately available. So again, the activities that you would be engaging in, a lot of quick access off the landing page. So what's not changing? Well, the underlying policies, the underlying, you know, clock in, clock out, time entry. Some of y'all may have seen new time clocks out there. That was unrelated to this project, but you know, clocking in today, clocking in tomorrow will be the same. Approval cadence, you know, those are based off the payroll schedules, bi-weekly and monthly. Those aren't changing. Basically, employee interactions with the system not changing, and how you access going through Connect Carolina not changing. So though we think it's a pretty evolutionary step in our timekeeping system, the look and feel will be fairly familiar. So how can employees start preparing? So with this big shift, a lot of the data that's in our existing timekeeping system won't move over. So what do we want to make sure is that, you know, balances have been reviewed. Ask the questions now of the existing data. Take a look at, you know, the vacation to sick rollover, things like that. And make sure that that you're in agreement with what you're seeing. And of course, you go to Tim, because Tim's the system of record. So, and then stay up to date. We're trying to target kind of a mid-month launch, so that, you know, like monthly employees can finish out that prior month. We'll start with a clean slate there. But those will be the balances as of the end of whatever month that is, and they will transfer into the new system. And then it may not hurt also to go in and like print off the last few months once we start getting very close to that launch. But there's going to be a lot of communications coming out. About 7 weeks out, we'll start communicating with the managers. Employee comms will start coming out soon after that. We've had one Tim admin webinar kind of talking about how do you prepare in the old system. And about a month out, we'll have a conversation about how to engage the new system. Trainings, webinars are all be available as we get fairly close. But I think it's because so much is not changing. We think it'll be a fairly seamless transition. But you know, when it's a system affecting 20,000 users, always want to be cognizant of that. So I'm gonna stop sharing screen and check the chat.
Excellent. Teresa, your hand is up.
Hey, Walter, it's good to see you. Question, you know, we've had this issue for some time where the secondary temporary appointments don't always show up for the employees. So will that be addressed in this?
So that is the
upgrade?
multiple assignment functionality is supposed to assist with that, you know, because there's a whole process in the old system where student employees have to transfer hours for it then to become visible, et cetera. And so that how the new system works in those considerations changes very significantly. Kristen, did you want to add to that? I saw you came off. Oh, you're on mute.
We can't hear. She doesn't look like she's muted, but we can't hear you.
There, can you hear me
Oh,
now?
better. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just going to say that, yeah, it's wonderful when the employee logs in, if they have more than one position, it automatically is there to select rather than actually having to go through the process of finding it under the department manager, et cetera. It's just right there, which is really great. And the other part that's really great is that the employees that have secondary positions that report to you or that are in your department will automatically appear in your list without them having to transfer first. So that, in addition to it importing more timely. So yeah, there's a lot of great things that are going to happen with with multiple assignments that we're going to, and as Walter said, that's part of the reason we've been spending so much time to get it right, because we're very excited about this alleviating a lot of those issues.
You are my Shiro.
I see in the chat a question about, okay, yeah, we'll pay attention, review accruals. Appreciate you doing that. What if a question arises? Of course, start with supervisor, TIM administrators out there. Defer to the question, work with your TIM administrator to gain an understanding of what's happening. And then if it becomes a technical issue, they'll reach out to us.
Yes, we held a webinar for TIM administrators recently to walk them through how to see some of this information in the system, just get more familiar with it if it's been a while, and just sort of give them some guidelines and guidance on how to see it in the system and pull up that information so they can answer questions if needed. And it's recorded, so if they didn't see it the first time around, we've sent out information on how to watch it if they need to.
Excellent. Any other questions for Walter or Kristen? I know a lot of us are gun shy after the Concur rollout problems that we've faced. So I think new systems are an anxiety point for a lot of us, but we hope that this goes very smoothly and we'll work with your team to make sure that happens, and look forward to the communication starting soon.
Phil, thank you for your time.
And Walter, let me just add, you're my hero. Kristen's my Shiro. Okay,
Yeah.
just saying.
We all appreciate your efforts to make sure we all get paid. Thank you. All right, folks. Moving on to our usual wellness updates from Jessica Pyjas. Welcome, Jessica. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Katie. Hello, forum. Can everyone hear me all right? Perfect. That's what I like to see. Well, my background is red, which is not one of my favorite colors, but it is National Heart Month. So this background is available to you and it was posted in the work well. It will be in the notes that I sent to Katie as well. But heart disease does unfortunately continue to be the #1 cause of death for both men and women in our country, and it takes the life of someone every 33 seconds. So it is responsible for 1 of 5 deaths that happen in this country. So with that, we posted some resources in the WorkWell newsletter that came out last Friday to help you stay healthy, but also help you be prepared if you or if someone around you is experiencing a heart attack. So one, I'm excited to let you know that the Environment, Health, and Safety exhibit that's going to be at our Total Wellbeing Expo next month on March 13th, they're going to bring some Annie dolls so some people can get some hands-on only CPR practice. That way you'll be able to know where to place your hands, how much pressure it takes to give CPR, as well as how fast those compressions need to be. But compression only CPR is successful for saving lives. So that will be a new feature in our exhibit hall at this event. Also, when it comes to preventing heart attack and stroke, it's so important to know your numbers and make sure that you are getting those annual preventative screenings. Blood pressure, if it's high, you are not necessarily going to feel that, which is why it's called the silent killer. If you are participating in the state health plan for your insurance provided by the state and UNC, know that that annual physical is preventative. It is 0 cost to see your primary care provider if they're in network and you're just getting those screenings, blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose. You should get that checked every year. If you want to get your blood pressure checked, we're going to have blood pressure screenings at the Total Wellbeing Expo as well at 2 of our exhibits. Another thing, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself, self-care. We do offer those 15 to 30-minute virtual meditation sessions throughout the week. They're provided by the School of Medicine, also by Mindful UNC. And then smile often and share that kindness, folks. Smiling by itself does relieve stress and improves mood, and it is contagious. So stay positive and spread that kindness. I will provide all the links to all the resources, as well as the signs and symptoms of heart attack for both men and women, and a link to download this background if you want to show your support throughout the month of February and have a red background. Doesn't need to be this one, but just let people know that it's for Heart Month and you're not cheering for NC State. All right. So with some upcoming wellness webinars that we do have this month, today we'll have a session on 10 strategies to improve your finances. Next Wednesday on Valentine's Day, we have a new session on learning to relax. And we're closing out the month a little early on February 21st with a webinar on unconscious bias. So if any of those intrigue you, please visit the calendar and sign up for those in Carolina Talent. Moving on, February is a very busy month for us over here as we're planning the Total Wellbeing Expo. As you may have heard, and I had said before on our last meeting, if you were on, it is March 13th. That is the Wednesday of spring break for students, 11 to 2 in Fetzer Hall. This is the same location it was last year. We have over 70 exhibitors in the exhibit hall, so a few more than last year. 3 fitness classes that will be happening in the rec center studio, including full body strength, Pilates, and daily exercises for spinal stability. We'll have 2 campus recreation tours, 2 mindful meditation sessions in the student rec center studio, We'll have therapy dogs from 11 to 1:30. That will be 2 different dogs to visit in case one gets sick. So we won't run into the same problem we ran into last year. We'll have 2 cooking demos, one from the National Kidney Foundation and one from Carolina Dining Services, and a very energetic and engaging performance by the Bouncing Bulldogs in the afternoon. Again, those chair massages are going to be available. We are keeping at the capacity that we offer them before. So you will be getting an email before the end of this month promoting the website, promoting the registrations. Not going to give a specific date, but do keep your eyes open for that email that will go to everybody. Another new thing that will be available other than that exciting CPR practice is that we did get sponsorship from TIAA to provide pizza, salad, and bottled water for the folks who attend the expo. So know that that's going to be available to you. Yes, I like the little emojis reactions popping up in the corner. So that's available to you. It will be in Gym B behind the exhibit hall. And know that this event is made possible by all the planners, but also all the volunteers that help out. It takes about 70 volunteers to pull this off. We have been promoting that volunteer link since our January Workwell newsletter. We're about 75% full. So if you've not signed up for a volunteer shift, don't miss your opportunity to get more involved with this event. You'll get a free t-shirt. There are about 20 shifts left to volunteer for the expo. And then any questions about the expo so far?
Jessica, I have a question. Hey, it's
Sure.
Laura. The quick clarifying question, are you only doing blood pressure checks, not the blood draw wellness checks this year?
Thank you very much for asking that question. That is a big difference than what you've typically seen over the many years that this event's been happening. In the past 7-8 years that I've been leading this event, we've had that screening done by the state health plan. For reasons that I do not know, they do not cover that anymore. So it is something that we would have to contract with an outside vendor to provide. It would be quite costly. So it's not provided at no cost to us anymore. So it is just the blood pressure screenings this year.
Bummer. Thanks for letting us know, though.
I know. Arlene.
Before I work for pizza, I want to know what kind of pizza it is.
All I can say is that it's Domino's and there'll be a variety of pizza to choose from. Joe Williams is taking care of the pizza orders, so he's been working with them, and I'm working on getting some discounted salads for us to work with our budget. So address your pizza questions to Joe Williams. He's a senior director of benefits. Any other questions about the expo? Okay, folks, just a few more announcements. I want to let you know that Helping Heals list of part-time caregivers when it comes to pet, child, and senior care has been updated for the spring and summer. We're going to move back to only updating that twice a year instead of 3 times a year because that spring semester is so short. So this list will be our active list until August. You may notice if you're an avid reader of Workwell, the wellness section for the past couple months features a monthly recipe. This year or this month, we are focusing on healthy Super Bowl snacks. If anybody's watching that football game on Sunday, there's a healthy treat for you. It's a loaded sweet potato fries. You can find that in Workwell. I'll also send that to the group as well. But switching out those tortilla chips for sweet potatoes is going to give you vitamin A and more fiber. And then I also attached some additional 5-star Super Bowl recipes. They're all coming from Eating Well, which is encouraged and promoted through nutritionists. So all the recipes on that website will be healthy recipes. There's a big transition that's happening with our supplemental retirement opportunities. So with moving towards just TIAA as supplemental retirement. So with that I'm the point of contact for scheduling any in-person sessions and webinars. So I'm your person if you want to do that. But we have a big variety of opportunities for people to learn more. If you're currently participating in Fidelity, you're getting switched over to TIAA, I very much encourage you to participate. We have webinars as early as tomorrow, the 8th in the morning from 10 to 11, February 13th, February 16th. Those are all virtual. We have one in person here at AOB. Welcome to anyone to show up. That is from 2 to 3 on the 21st. And then we have another virtual one on February 26th. Sorry, February 27th. I've been working with different schools to get in-person sessions scheduled. So know that pharmacy has one scheduled for later in March. And if you want a session scheduled for your school or division, please reach out. We're still offering those one-on-one sessions with TIAA. They have moved back to AOB on Airport Drive, and they're on Wednesdays this month. So today, the 21st, and well, they're every Wednesday this month. So you'll have all the links. I'll have to update the maybe typos that I put on this note sheet. And then for discounts, you're probably familiar with Working Advantage. It's a discount program that's been available to you since we've had ComSite Guidance Resources as the EAP provider. Working Advantage is now offering a loyalty program, which is a way to earn points to save even more money. So if you book hotels through Working Advantage, you get 4 points per dollar. And 1 point per dollar on any shows, concert, theme park tickets, and events that you buy through Working Advantage. The program is called Fun Life. So it's still going to be the same sign in through your Working Advantage program, and all that is in the newsletter and will be shared with you. In addition to Heart Month, Valentine's Day is next year. So if you're buying any gifts, there are lots of ways to save on Perks Connect and Working Advantage. Up to 25% off of flowers, cookies, other sweet treats, edible arrangements, a little healthier. Fragrances is more. So that is all available to you. And if you like to get a head start on your taxes, you get discounts on Tax Act, TurboTax, and H&R Block. That's up to 25% off. And then sticking with the theme of Heart Month, through your current Blue 365 discounts that you have available to you till the end of the year, you can get up to 50% off of heart rate monitors and physical activity trackers like Garmin, Fitbit, and other popular products. And that is through Blue 365. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So all that is available to you. Let me know if you have any questions.
All right, folks, questions for Jessica?
Not a question, but if I may. Jessica, first, I just want to say thank you for being here. You're always great. And secondly, thank you for all that you do. A lot of you don't know, like Jessica goes to battle for staff. Like there was an issue with not Whole Foods, what are they
Fresh
called?
Market.
Fresh Market. And like Jessica's like, listen, I need to know what's going on, why this, because there's a discount, but it doesn't include staff. So thank you for doing that. She wasn't able to get it turned around the way we would like for it, but she did. I will attest, she did go to battle for us on behalf of staff. So we truly appreciate all you do and all the work you do, and just putting staff on an equal playing field or equal level with faculty and students.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. If you were a regular Fresh Market shopper, they made a big change to their discount a few months ago. And, you know, we don't often find out about these things until someone brings it to our attention. There are a lot of discounts available to us. They don't always come to us to promote or start a discount, and they can take it away at any time. So Keith and Katie brought it to my attention, and the change to the discount is although it used to be 10% for any UNC student or employee, any day of the week off groceries. It's now only 10% off on Wednesdays for students and faculty, but not staff. So that is what Keith is referring to. I tried to get more information on that. They recently made that change. I'm staff too, folks. I'm staff too. So they recently made that change. So they let me know they won't be changing it anytime soon, but that they will consider that, as I made the point, how staff plays a very important role at the university and often receive a smaller paycheck than faculty.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. I reiterate everything Keith just said. Thank you so much. Arlene, you have your hand up.
This is something for Jessica to investigate because I don't expect her to have an answer. Until January 31st, Amtrak had a discount for North Carolina government employees. If you can find out if that's something that's just temporarily changed or if it's a permanent change. Because I really enjoyed that discount.
Oh, you're muted, Jessica.
You did mention that to me before, Arlene. I didn't realize that the date of that ending, but I will look into that.
I found out this morning, so.
Oh, lots of trips to Charlotte, huh?
Oh,
I have family in Greensboro.
Got it.
alas, they're taking away more and more discounts, folks.
Yeah, and again, if as you learn about these things, especially if it's something that we promote on any of our platforms, please let me know. We don't control any discount platform other than our UNC webpage. So we can make updates to the webpage pretty quickly. When it comes to even our branded Perks Connect page, those aren't done by anybody at the university. It does take a few weeks to get things updated on that website. So when you learn about discount changes, something new or something no longer, please let me know so I can let the appropriate people know.
All right, folks. Well, thanks again, Jessica. And as always, I will get your updates sent out to the group after the meeting. And we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I know we'll have a meeting next month, but I look forward to seeing everyone at the expo.
Yes, same. All right, folks, moving on to the next portion of our agenda. We've got the consent agenda, which includes the January minutes, which Matt sent out separately. Before I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda, I wanted to check to see if there are any committees, chairs that wanted to pull their committees for an update outside of the consent agenda. Otherwise, we will approve all of the committee updates by consent agenda. Shayna.
Can I pull or may I? Sorry, my mother would correct me there. May I pull the staff assembly out, please?
Yes, you may. Anybody else? All right, folks. With that said, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda except for staff assembly updates?
This is Arlene, I so move.
Second.
We're going to do this by acclamation. Do I hear any opposed to approving the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes by acclamation. All right, folks, staff assembly updates. Shayna, take it away.
I just wanted to let you know that the Chancellor's Cup golf tournament will be at Findlay in September. So if you want to participate, please do. It is a joyous event. We raise money for the Janet B. Royster Scholarship, which is a staff assembly-wide scholarship. And so please come out and support if you want. If Keith wants to add anything, he is one of our co-directors, and we're excited to have Keith. Charlie is also on the committee. Arlene is also on the committee. Am I forgetting anyone?
Participation is not optional.
Keith, be nice.
I am.
You are
I
so
have let them know many months in advance. It's
Chief-
happening at the end of September. You
Chief,
all
this
know
is just a
that.
reminder that the professional development grant review is in June, so just saying.
Participation is not mandatory in that either. There's not
Ma'am,
optional.
I did awards and read like 75. Do you have a cap on how long the essay can be?
I do think, yeah, so no, you're forgiven, you're forgiven. I won't come at you.
Well, thank you and kudos to Shayna and Keith and Garrett at the system office or the staff assembly level for spearheading that. And thank you to Charlie and Arlene for putting together our proposal from UNC-Chapel Hill to have us host again at Finley. We are definitely looking forward to that event coming up in September. We don't have the final dates yet, but it will be close to the end of the month in September. So be on the lookout for that. If you're interested in helping, the UNC-Chapel Hill contingent will be integral in kind of helping Shayna, Keith, and Garrett at the system, the staff assembly level to implement the event when we get closer. So any and all volunteers are going to be welcome and appreciated. And we just have a great time. So looking forward to that, definitely. All right. Anything else, Shayna? You good? The dates for the March staff assembly meeting, I think, just got announced, correct?
They did, and I don't have them in front of me. Wait, let me.
I think it was March
18th and 19th.
Yes. Okay. So we are doing that at the system office in Raleigh. So we are looking forward to the next full body meeting of the staff assembly in March. Excellent. Thank you, Shayna. All right, next portion of the agenda is old business. As Jacob sent you all separately via email in advance, we are going to pick back up the bylaws revisions discussion. And Jacob has an updated motion to share with the group, and we'll kind of talk through it before we formally make the motion and introduce discussion on said motion. So with all of that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob and have him kind of lead the discussion.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and, so I appreciate everybody reading over it. I'm gonna give everybody the benefit of the doubt and assume everyone read every single word super specifically and that I don't have to go over any of it. But there are some changes to it, so I'll go over those. So thanks for everyone who sent feedback. I've tried to incorporate all of it as best I could. I guess I will not share my screen. Matt will do that.
Matt,
So
can you
that's
stop
actually
sharing
an
your screen?
older
'Cause that's the old
so,
one.
Yeah, if it's all right if I share the one we got. Cool. Whee!
Sorry about that, Jacob. I'm
It's
just
okay.
trying to help.
No, I appreciate it. I love it when I talk. There we go. Is that? Sorry, it's always weird when suddenly my screen goes away and I'm like, oh wait, no, it is sharing the right screen. So yeah, this is just a generalized motion to have the bylaws reviewed by the UNC School of Laws Community Development and Law Clinic. It's kind of 7 different things that we're specifically asking them to look at. Primarily in point 1 is the creation of a chair-elect position. There's some spots about when the elections will occur at the beginning of the chair's 2nd year. And some responsibilities, including shadowing the chair. They need to be a full voting member, which will also kind of serve some other spots in the bylaw things. They'll be on the executive committee, staff assembly, and stack. If there is a vacancy, they will hold a special election so that they're elected at the next full body meeting, so that position is not vacant for an extended period of time, since it is such an important position. And they'll just finish out that 1-year term, with the assumption that they will also then move into the chair for the next 2 years. Second 2, goes right
Jacob,
to the, yeah.
can you zoom a little bit? My eyes ain't what they used to be. There we go.
Number 2, we're going to update the chair position. So instead of it being a 1-year term, it is now a 2-year term. This is also going to kind of cap it at 2, because after 2 years, you immediately move into a past chair, which is an ex officio position, which has been the way that it already was in the bylaws. But since there was no limit on how long you were running, it was possible that it wouldn't just automatically kick in. This will also kind of help put some safeguards on the chair's ability to appoint themselves if they don't win re-election. So yeah, but yeah, and again, if the chair is vacant, then instead of it being an automatic promotion from the chair-elect, we're going to keep our current succession order as is. So if the chair position does roll out, that chair's term will be finished up by the vice chair, which will allow the chair-elect to still have that kind of learning grace period to get ready for their role. And also that would only, in essence, unless they lost it early in their term, then at least the chair-elect would know what they were getting into. If the vice chair took over before that. The third portion, let me roll that. There we go. We're creating also the immediate past chair position, ex officio non-voting member for 1 year following their term as chair. After that, they're obviously eligible to rerun to join the forum as a voting delegate. We've kind of adjusted some of and try to actually nail down the voting position for the staff assembly because it's a little amorphous in the bylaws. So the elections position will occur kind of when we do all of our normal elections in June. There'll be 3 staff assembly delegates, each serving 1 term. However, that does not mean we'll be voting for 3 staff assembly positions because 2 of the positions will automatically, 1 will automatically be the chair and 1 will automatically be the chair-elect. However, that will mean that every other year there will be 2 spots available. So 2 years we'll vote for 1 staff assembly, 1 year we'll vote for 2 staff assembly delegates. During those elections, we will also have an alternate will be assigned. They will be the person with the most votes other than the delegates elected. Again, kind of standard things. If something goes absent, we'll move to have a full body. Maybe not quite as fast. We're going to give it a little bit more time for 2 general body meetings just because it's not as much of a linchpin kind of position for ours. But we do to make sure that the chair-elect position and other ones are shored up relatively quickly. Moving down to point 5, revisions to the general electoral process outlining anyone up for elegant to be a delegate or an officer. They need to recuse themselves from the election process, mostly so we can't put a thumb on the scale. Generally, we haven't had a problem with that in the past, but we're trying to make sure that our laws are there to be kind of future proof as opposed to just leaving some potential use cases for misuse. And then number 6 is we're altering the term limit section of the bylaws. Currently, as rules as written, is that you're allowed to do 3 2-year terms and then you have to roll off for at least 1 year. That has not been really enforced at all in my time on the forum. Partly because also in that time in the forum, we have not been fully represented. We have not had every delegate seat filled. Which made it seem rather counterintuitive and unproductive actually to force someone to roll off if they were still willing to serve the university and the body in this capacity. However, so what we're trying to do that is so that now if we ever are fully represented at that point, then that term limit does go into effect. So that in theory, 5 years from now, suddenly it's the cool thing is to be on the forum. Then you only get 6 years to be one of the cool kids and you gotta let somebody else play. And the last one is just kind of a general rewording of the bylaws language. We've had a couple of folks taking some passes at this stuff in the past. However, a lot of the folks that are doing that have taken on new positions and have even less time than they did when they started doing the revisions. But the main goal with that is to actually make it more accessible, a little bit lower reading level necessary to follow that. I had considered doing this as 7 separate motions, but I'm not going to do that to y'all.
I'll make one additional comment around point number 6 around the term limit section. We also talked about there's some confusion around if your terms as an appointed delegate, your 1 year appointed delegate time counts in that 6-year limit. And it's kind of vague and unclear as to whether or not it does or if it resets. So just kind of updating the term limit section of the bylaws to make it clear it's a 6-year term of service, no matter if you're elected or appointed. Then you would roll off for a year. Again, only in effect when we are at full representation. Looking in the chat, Randall says, will the current chair be able to rerun? I'm concerned we'll have difficulty finding enough people interested and qualified to be the chair if the position is going to turn over every 2 years. Great question, Randall. I will say they could, in theory, run for the chair-elect position while they're chair, but I don't know that I can speak for myself personally. Maybe I'll call on Shayna to maybe provide her thoughts, but I don't know that a current chair would want to serve for that much longer. It is a really taxing position, and I think it's going to be good for the body to have some new blood every 3 years. To me, I think it would be helpful for the chair and for the body to have some new folks come in and serve in a leadership role. So I don't think there's anything in the revisions that as proposed that would limit that from happening. But if we want to add something in there saying that the current chair cannot rerun until
Katie,
chair has taken effect, we could add that. Go ahead, Keith.
Katie, can they though run? I don't think with the way it's worded that a current chair can run for chair-elect. Can they, if they do the year of immediate past chair?
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Thank you for bringing that up, Keith.
So there's that. Okay, you'd go chair-elect for 1 year, chair for 2 years, and then immediate past chair. So
It's a
in
four-year commitment, yeah.
So there would be a year gap where they're like the ex officio non-voting member. And then after that, while they're immediate past chair, they could. So, but it would still be sort of a year gap in.
Yeah, to Randall's concern about there not having someone interested in it, we would know that was going to be a problem when no one volunteered or ran for the chair-elect position.
Yeah.
In this case, since the chair-elected would immediately assume the responsibilities at the end of the 2-year term, we would in theory at least have a whole year of being like, somebody's got to step up. But I do understand your concern, but I also think that this is good churn as opposed to problematic churn. I think it's entirely possible for some of these positions to get a little stagnant. I also think that it's, to be fair, just from an outsider's perspective, I've never been chair and have no desire to be chair. It's a lot of work. It is pulling a lot of your time into a lot of these different areas, and I don't really think it's fair to the people doing that, especially now that the chancellors and group have been leaning more and more on the chairs. It used to be kind of like, hey, every couple of months we'll have a meeting. Now it's you're in multiple meetings every month, all of which are kind of high level decisions. I think getting fresh blood in is good, not just for diversity of opinions, but also so that we are not burning out people who are volunteering their time.
Well said, Jacob. I think that's kind of what I was trying to convey as inadeptly as I did. But Shayna, I don't know if you wanted to contribute your thoughts as another former chair.
Well, I agree. All of these gray hairs happened. And 4 years was a really, really long time, and they were unique. I will say that. But I encourage anybody who is interested in the least bit to step up and take, try their hand at chairing the employee forum. It is a great experience, but I do agree. I think the 2 years would be, sort of a perfect time to step down and let somebody else take the reins.
Yeah, and also just, I think we've talked about this in past meetings, but I'll kind of bring forward some of the historical perspective of why this is coming up. The faculty council here at UNC-Chapel Hill just implemented a similar process for their chair position, where there's going to be a year of chair-elect, 2 years as chair of the faculty, and then a year as immediate past chair. So we're kind of mirroring that, but it also mirrors the staff assembly level, which Shayna is now serving as that chair. That process works very similarly. There's a year as chair-elect, you have 2 years as the chair of the body, and then you are a year ex officio. So I think there's precedent there, and I think it's going to serve the body well to have this kind of line of succession in place to encourage folks stepping into the leadership role and having the time and the onboarding necessary to do it well and to be successful in their time as full-on chair. So yeah, that's kind of the historical perspective around it, and wanted to make sure that that was clear before. Yeah, so I think, Jacob, if you'll allow me, I think at this point, now that we've read through everything, I think it's time to make the motion and then have discussion. So do I hear a motion? Do I hear this motion?
I so move. This is Rebecca.
Actually, we'll go ahead and do it more quasi-parliamentary. Since it is a motion that in theory I wrote, I bring this motion as written forward to the general body.
Excellent. Rebecca.
Second.
Excellent. All right, so now it's time for discussion on the resolution or the motion at hand. Yeah, discussion. Feel free to raise your hand.
Jacob, here on number 6, can you please fix that and change it to an A since it's right there in my face? Okay.
Please be aware motions aren't really that, again, it doesn't get published. This is just a motion.
No, it was just driving me crazy. But I was gonna ask, can you scroll down so I can see number 4? Well, scroll up. Okay, that's what I want to reread.
So while Keith is rereading this, I'll also say Charles Streeter is on the call. So if you want to chime in and provide any context during discussion, as another past chair, I would welcome your thoughts there as well, just to share all of the former past chair knowledge that's on the call. In the meantime, James Stamey, your hand is up.
Yes, I want to make sure I understand this correct. So I think that my 6 years would be up next year. That means that I would roll off unless someone else. I would roll off unless someone else wanted to serve. Am I saying that right? I don't know. It's been a long weekend, long few days.
Let me see if I can say this correctly. I think it would mean that in a year where we have an election that goes and I am able to elect everyone that ran and appoint everyone that ran, and we don't have anyone that participated in the election process that did not get to serve in some capacity, then the roll-off requirement would not be in effect. But if there are years in which we have more folks that ran than have the opportunity to serve, and we're full up, then in that case, the folks that are at the term limit point would be asked to roll off for a year before rerunning. Am I saying that correctly, Jacob?
Yeah, to James's point, currently the way the rules are written, it doesn't matter if we're full or not. You hit 6, you're supposed to take a year off. As it is currently written. What we're trying to do is not penalize people who are willing to put in the time and volunteer their hours for that service until it becomes unfair for other folks who also want to volunteer. Because I'm sure many of us are on here because not only do we feel called to do it and feel that it's important work, but also that there are advantages. Like, I like getting these HR updates so that I'm not blindsided when someone from Student Affairs sends an email about HR updates. It's nice to kind of have some context for that. And I don't want to stand in the way of other employees having those opportunities. But until I am standing in someone else's way, I think those who want to do the work should be allowed to do the work.
Other discussion on the motion?
Well done, Jacob, and folks who helped.
Yes, kudos and thank you to all of you all for that. I'll chime in during the discussion session what kind of the next steps are for this motion if it gets passed today. What's going to happen is we'll take this passed motion and we'll bring it to the UNC School of Law clinic. Community Development Law Clinic is going to take a look at our bylaws and help refresh them. This group actually helped the Employee Forum with a bylaws refresh about I think I want to say 2012-ish timeframe. And so they are familiar with our bylaws. So we're going to kind of bring it back to them for another refresh. They're going to take a look at these, is it 7 items, 6, 7 items, and do a refresh of our bylaws and incorporate these things as long as there is a consensus from this vote today that we are in favor of making these changes.
Question in the chat, Katie.
Yeah, and I'll come to that in just a second. The next step from there is once they are done making revisions, they would bring the final revisions to us and for a vote in likely April timeframe. So we would then vote on said revisions at the April meeting. So that's kind of the timeline of what will happen should this motion pass. Leslie says, is there a way to advertise this opportunity like an email from the chancellor to staff? Are you talking about the chair-elect opportunity?
Yes, well, yes, because it sounds like this is the message that I'm hearing is just getting people to come on board, volunteer, get involved, figure out what it is. And to be honest, like, I didn't really understand what it was. And I think I'm still learning. But I do know that like there's a lot of staff that would be excellent leaders. So I'm just wondering if, and maybe you've tried this and this hasn't really worked, you know, I mean, it sounds like, but maybe there could be something like a call from the chancellor to serve to specifically like employees that maybe, I don't know if we can, but some incentive, I don't know, doesn't have to be like a lottery, but I'm just trying to see if there is an opportunity to kind of get a lot more interest so people aren't feeling like they're going to get burned out. I mean, you know, Katie, I think you should just do it.
Well, I appreciate that vote of confidence. I will continue to be involved with the forum even after rolling off for a little bit, but I do need a hot break for a second. I've been on the forum for about, is it 8 years now? So it's been in a leadership role the entire time. So it's a lot, but I definitely will stay still involved. To your question, I think we do always during the election season try and work with the administration and with communications across campus to encourage folks to nominate themselves or other colleagues who are going to be great leaders to come and serve on the forum. So we always do try and creatively advertise those opportunities during the election season, which is coming up in the March-ish timeframe. We'll start kind of the call for nominations at that point. I will encourage folks, if they've not seen it already, Shayna, during her time as chair, put together an amazing video talking about our elections process, and it's absolutely hilarious. It's one of the my most favorite things I've done on the forum is participating in that video. So we've used that. I think we could look at doing another video or another kind of tool to creatively get folks interested in serving, because it is a great opportunity to meet folks and to kind of see the bigger picture and participate in kind of campus governance. So our staff are so amazing. We want to make sure they get involved, and yeah. Great question. Other discussion on the motion? And I want to give Jacob a huge kudos to for all of his work thinking through and working on these issues as our parliamentarian. Could not do this without you, Jacob, so I appreciate it. We're supposed to update our bylaws every 3 years, and we've not done that, I don't think, too recently. So this is a good opportunity to get a nice refresh of our bylaws. Yes, Adriani, we do, I think, embed that video in the call for nominations. Great point in the chat from Charles. The chair-elect will need more than 10 hours of time per month discussion with HR. I think in the creation of that position and what's outlined in the officer section of the time allotted, we'll need to outline that and maybe present the proposed bylaws change to HR. And we are mandated in our bylaws as they are currently written to update the chancellor as well before we make bylaws revisions. So they know this is coming, the bylaws revisions process, but we will be sure to share a draft with them to get any feedback before bringing it to the body for passage. So we make sure everybody's on board with the changes that we are proposing. Any other questions, thoughts?
I do also want to remind everyone that this is a motion to, this is basically a motion to get suggestions. Before any of these are enacted, it will still have to go through the body. We will still have the option to debate it. They will be providing guidance. They will not be, they have no authority, all the authority on whether or not we adopt their bylaw suggestions, changes, all of that still rests with this body.
we just wanted to get everybody's consensus with the group of some of these bigger picture changes to make sure that we're not sending them in a direction that the body wasn't interested in going. So getting y'all's feedback in this early phase of where we want to point them and what changes we want made is going to be really helpful to making sure when we bring this back to the body for debate that folks aren't blindsided by a change that we make. So Rebecca, your hand's up.
Just curious, when the revised bylaws come back, are they going to be presented to us in a redlined format from the old bylaws to the new so we can kind of see what was and what is proposed?
We'll definitely ask the Community Development Law Clinic to make sure they provide us with a redlined version. I'm sure that they'll probably have a cleaner version too that they can provide us, so that folks that are considering, the delegates that are considering this, when we bring it to a vote, will have all of the information necessary to make an informed decision.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you for adding that, Jacob. We don't have a whole lot of time left, so unless there's any other discussion, I'd like to call the question and move to a vote. All in favor of passing this motion and moving this process to the Community Development Law Clinic for their assistance in making these revisions? Please unmute yourself and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Rebecca, your hand is up. I'm assuming from the time it was up that it was for an aye vote.
I think it's left over from her question.
Okay. So no opposed, any abstentions? Okay, well, the motion has passed. Thank you all for your feedback and help on this process. And again, huge kudos to Jacob for leading this effort. Jacob and I are going to meet with them literally in like 35 minutes to present some of these things and to talk to them about the forum and really just kind of hand them off this project. So we appreciate y'all's help. Before we conclude today, I have one item of new business. Unfortunately, Tracy Weatherby Williams, our trustee treasurer for the past several years, is no longer with the university as of the end of January. So we have a vacancy in the treasurer position. The bylaws, as stated, allow me to appoint the replacement for that position that will serve out the remainder of Tracy's term, which ends, I guess, beginning of June when we do officer elections for the coming year. So with all of that said, I would like to congratulate Bridget Ironside on being the new treasurer of the Employee Forum. Thank you, Bridget, for volunteering to lead us in that effort, and I welcome you to the Employee Forum cabinet. She's got some great ideas. She also was the person that ran against Tracy back in the last election process. So we really appreciate you, Bridget, and it's going to be great to work with you. If you want to say anything, feel free. Oh, you're muted.
I just wanted to say I'm super excited to be serving in this role. I know that Tracy will be hard shoes to fill. I get that. But y'all should be comforted in knowing I've got about 20 years of budgeting, accounting, and finance experience. So I think I'll be able to fill the role.
I think we're in great hands. We appreciate it, Bridget. And I know Tracy has offered her support if you need it as you take the role. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Bridget. Before we close out, just announcements and questions time. Vice Chancellor's representatives meetings. We have one coming up in March, on March 14th from 2 to 3. So Matt will be sending out in February the call for questions. So if you have any questions you want to bring to the VCs, we always love to bring those questions forward. So make sure you are on the lookout for that, Qualtrics. And then we'll just close things. We got a couple minutes left with the It Takes a Village highlights and kudos. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and share positive things they're seeing in their units, in their areas, kudos or appreciation for your fellow staff, feel free to unmute yourself.
I've been temping in the print shop the past couple weeks. The stuff they get done, the turnaround time they get done is just really impressive. And by the way, they do personal projects as long as you're UNC affiliated.
Yeah, Print Stop is a great team of folks, so kudos to them. Anybody else? Well, as always, I am very appreciative of each and every one of you for everything you do for the forum. I will say my birthday is coming up on Sunday, and there's going to be parties all across the country in celebration of me. There might be a football game actually happening. I don't know. So just looking forward to celebrating that in another year of being here and working with you fine folks. So y'all have a great rest of your February. Mine is going to be chaotic and crazy for my job. This is my busy time of year, so I will unbury myself and see you all again in March. So thanks, everybody.
Y'all have a good day. If you can't be good, don't get caught.
Well said, Arlene.
I didn't know you can make it rain birthday cakes.
That's so fun. I like that.
There they go again.
I'd like to know how it was done.
So much cake.
I'm going to shut down the meeting in about 1 minute. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Katie. Great job today.
Thanks, everybody.
It happens when you type in happy birthday.
Awesome. Zoom, the things you learned. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you. I'm going to sign off and get ready for this meeting with the CDL clinic.
Wonderful. Good work.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to shut us down in about 30 seconds or so. All right, all. Take care. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.